I was in contact with other researchers from across the world, and at that point, it wasn't like it is now. There was no YouTube, there was no big, huge community. There were obscure forums and people that connected from all over the world who were piecing the puzzle pieces together. And I remember this guy. Um, we wrote back and forth. He was in Australia, and he sent me those mainstream media articles about 9/11 and whatnot. And I said, why do you send me CNN articles? These are fairy tales. We know they're lying. But he said, that's not what this is about. What you're looking for is, what is the media reporting at that moment in time? And is one outlet reporting it, or are all outlets reporting the same thing at the same moment in time using the same language? He was teaching me about discovering patterns. And so that is what I want to put out about this. Look for the patterns, look for the synchronized language. And once it starts kicking in, once you see the same buzzwords come in the UK, in the US, in Australia, and Canada, and Italy, everywhere, then you know that it's officially beginning. And then you can prepare for a shift that's going to, or a transformational moment that's going to happen for many months and years. And even if you compare this to COVID wasn't as novel a thing as this would be, right? So this would be the next step up. I don't think there's anything above that, actually. This will be the next step up, and this will last for many months and years. And just like with the C-19 thing, they can turn it on, off a little, dial it down, dial it up again. So this will, or is, a psyop that's going to affect the entire world, and that's going to start a ripple effect through all institutions that will be shocking to many people, because everybody will have to rewrite their stories, right? We have not acknowledged officially any interference from outside. Many scientists have suggested it. Historians, archaeologists, UFO researchers, spiritual teachings, religions, everything tells us interference. Everything tells us different. We see it in art. I mean, we see paintings from the 1400s and 1300s that have a lot of unidentified aerial phenomenons, UFOs, saucers, whatever in it. So we know that this is a subject that's been hidden from us. But once it goes into the mainstream, everything will be questioned, and has to be questioned. And that will be a moment for the mass psyche that'll be extremely challenging. For some, they will love it. They will welcome everything. They will say, we always knew it. There's going to be bumper stickers, and there's going to be T-shirts, and there's going to be whole towns that are going to go full out alien, welcome them, and make landing stations, and cafes are going to pop up that are going to, it's going to be the whole 9 yards. But for the mass psyche, for the very religious, for the hardcore program, this is going to be extremely difficult. And then there's the entire aspect of blue beam, holographic technologies we don't even understand, technologies we think we know of, but that might be so sophisticated that even the most conspiratorial thinker could go, no, they can't fake this. So all of this, you cannot observe solely with the human mind and the human brain. You will go insane. And you can't get to any factual conclusions through that alone. That's why our spiritual connection, our higher consciousness, our connection with spirit is so important. It is a guidance system that knows truth from lies, that knows facts from fictions. It just knows. And so we're going to have to stay very grounded and very balanced if and when this starts to roll out, because most of the people won't be. Once again, how did you know? Many of you knew in 2020 from almost moment one, this is not true. What they're telling us is not true. This is something different. Something is wrong. Something is fake. What told you? Your intuition. So you had to have been in touch with it. You had to have a way to feel that and trust that. And that's why you didn't go along with things. That's why you didn't take their solution. It's going to be the same. It's going to be just the same, and you're going to have to trust it again and know what is true and what isn't by simply intuition. And intuition will guide you in the right research direction. Now, there's another aspect. If they need it and if it serves them, I believe that it could be possible that they're going to disable a lot of the communication channels for a while. Whatever the official reason will be, but I've been sensing this for the entire year. And this might be just our personal situation, or it might be something that I'm sensing for the bigger picture. I don't know for sure, but I have been sensing that we're going to have a calm period. And this is how it's been coming to me. Basically, I've been sensing that we're going to have a calm winter. And what I mean by that, I'll explain it to you. I didn't know I was going to share it, but I feel like I'm supposed to. For this entire year, I've been buying interesting books. So every time I came across a book where I had an intuitive yes, I would buy the book. And so now I'm walking around the house and they're on the shelves and everywhere, and I haven't read them. And maybe you know the feeling, but you kind of start feeling guilty for, spending the money on the books that you're not reading. And I go, I simply don't have the time currently to read all those books. So then through this entire year, every time that thought came through, a feeling came through that said, don't worry, it's going to be a calm winter. You're going to have enough time to read those books. I said, well, what does that mean? And that's a calm winter, time to read the books, sit by the fire, whatever. So this might be our personal situation. It might be something bigger, but I'm assuming that whether that's connected to disclosure or not, that we might go through a period where official communication channels might be down, restricted, whether that is an outage or just a heavy restriction for some reason. At any rate, I have no negative feelings around it. I only know that is a possibility. It's been coming through for many months. So I just wanted to throw it out there. Nothing to worry about or panic, at least not from my perception. But here's the thing. Maybe for a while, you're going to be solely relying on yourself. And that's what we've been saying and talking about for so many years, that it is time that we take full responsibility for ourselves. And even in very difficult, extraordinary circumstances, to take responsibility for how you get your information, for how you do your research, and for what conclusions you come to. Because that's always been the goal, that people step back into their own power again, right? And that the people believe in themselves again. Like I've said yesterday on the show, this blind faith in institutions, governments, religions, all of that has led us away from the faith in us, knowing who we are, and that we really hold a tremendous power. And if I have gathered anything so far from benevolent species that have contacted us, and the one thing that comes through and through comes through over and over again is that they might have advanced technologically, but they have given up something that we still have. They have given up whatever divine biological spark, whatever you want to call that, whether it's the divinity embedded into our DNA, whether it's our spirit connection, whatever you want to, how you want to call that. That's what they seem to be seeking. And even versions of humanity that appear to have traveled from the future, these messages have been coming through for a very long time. Abductions, we've heard of that. And often people have found that is so sort of a very violent thing to do, but not all of them have been violent. Some of them have actually been voluntary. And I think that what is happening on Earth right now, what is happening in our political systems and what is happening in culture and society is this moment that a lot of other civilizations before us have gone through. They've passed the threshold, they have given up something that they couldn't get back, and now they want it back. We still have it. And if anything matters more than anything else in this life, is to keep that, which connects you to spirit, consciousness, and the truth. That has been the message, my friends. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being with us. Also, I want to thank you all. So many of you have ordered the Be the Glitch t-shirt that Christine designed. Be the Glitch you wanted to see in the Matrix. I love that. I actually can't wait to see some of you wearing it out there. And maybe we'll get to talk. That's how I'll recognize you as a viewer. I'll see you wearing that Be the Glitch. And the other thing is, and this is a constant invitation, I want to extend it again today. Since August of 2023, we have been living in a constant high consciousness field. So even if we have a bad day, even if something doesn't work out and we might get sad or whatever, we're still embedded in a high consciousness field. And I want to thank the FLFE family, Focused Life Force Energy, for their incredible work that they've been doing and for their support that they've been giving to tens of thousands of people all over the world who are on this service. It is basically, it feels like there's a group of monks that constantly meditating around you. So you always feel embedded into a field of high consciousness. If you want to find out more about that and start a free trial, no strings attached, by the way, go to highconsciousnessfield.com. I think this service will support us, see us out through the rest of the decade, and might make a huge difference in how we get through this all and how high our own consciousness can be. So, just an invitation to give it a try. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. And for those of you who are with us on Locals, inspired.locals.com, we will do a quick Locals here in a moment and answer a question that was asked yesterday on Locals. That's our subscriber community, and we want to thank you all who are supporting us there and who are with us there.
Is it support@locals.com?
Support@locals.com if you have any questions.
Yeah, Lisa has a question. She signed up but didn't hear anything, so I'm just.
Yeah, if you have any questions about the Locals platform, technical or whatever, support@locals.com. My friends, we're going to keep an eye on this subject. We're going to keep an eye on the media reports, on the government reports. But generally speaking, prepare. I think that campaign has actually started. And over the next days, weeks, and months, I think it's going to increase. And at some point, we're going to be full on in it. And then I would love to see millions of people stay calm and actually take the lead. All right. Much love, many blessings, and we will be back with you again very, very soon. You could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.
Oh, right. This isn't lining up, or what's going on? What the hell is going on? So I'm just confused by that story, right? And George saying, George isn't the only one saying that there were people telling him people telling members of Congress during the hearing, don't ask certain questions. And I believe Jared Moskowitz brought that up in the hearing, right? I just found that interesting. Another thing that I found interesting was during the hearing, Michael Schellenberger is asked about the report. He's hounded by this. I should have had this clip brought up. I'm so sorry. God, the one clip I forgot. But he's hounded during the hearing about the report. Who wrote the report? Tell us more about this person, right? And Michael Schellenberger's like, I'll protect my witness, my source, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't even want to reveal gender, where they work, anything. Well, if you look inside the report, it literally says the person works in the Department of Defense, right? And the guy is asking him that. Does he work in the Department of Defense? Knowing that it's in the report. And Michael Schellenberger still says, like, he can't talk about it. But they can submit the report for public view, right? Does that make sense? And this is what Luna was talking about, right? They were told things, shown things, and then brought in so they could ask questions about it. And then everyone was like, I can't talk about it. But wait a second, it's this public report. You can say it. It's in the report. It says the person works for the Department of Defense. It's little things like that that just add up. It's death. You know what it is? The saying is death by 1,000 cuts. This is like misinformation by 1,000 lies, right? Little mini lies. So just a lot of things that don't add up. That's it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not making any definitive statements. I'm not saying anyone's lying or this, that. I'm just saying it doesn't add up. It's confusing. What the hell is going on? Can we get some clarification? Schellenberger would be great to get some clarification. He never tweeted out anything about the report. That Jeremy Corbell was the one that turned it in. Didn't say anything, right? So I don't know what the hell's going on.
I don't know what the hell's going on either.
But in the Immaculate Constellation document, it says the person worked for the Department of Defense. And Michael Schellenberger is asked directly and still denies it. It's like, why? What is the point? All right, so let's move on to the next story. Gary Nolan. Now, I have to admit, when I first saw this clip of Gary Nolan, it got my mind racing with a bazillion questions. And you're about to see why, because the same thing is probably going to happen to you. Pay attention. Because the clip I'm about to share of Gary Nolan, who also is a great interviewee, I like watching Gary Nolan interviews. Again, regardless of how you feel about him, I like watching his interviews. But it's something he said on a podcast recently that I just can't get out of my head. I wanted to make a video about it, but it was during Thanksgiving, and I had my Chris Ramsey interview, so I had to focus on that. But this has stuck with me since I heard it. So I'm going to play it, and you tell me what sticks out to you about this, and let's see if it aligns with what sticks out for me.
So I remember talking to a physicist who is, deeply involved with the program, meaning he actually knows a lot about him. He has top security clearances. And I said, so they're moving really fast, and they're doing it in a way that they don't have an onboard fusion reactor. He said, well, we can't find their energy source. I said, so they're cheating somehow. I said, yeah, you can call it that. Somehow they're accessing levels of energy that are sufficient for them to make this move without exploding the sun every second. So I think one of the things that humanity is good at is, and that anybody in the intelligence field, or frankly any field, commercialization, knows, is that once you know something can be done, then it's a race to doing it yourself. If it can never be done, then
You give up.
you give up. But if you know it can be done, maybe that's all the incentive you need.
All right, so you've heard that. I'm going to play one more clip, and just in your mind, compare them together, and I'll point it out afterwards, but I want to see if you can do it yourself as well.
Check 1 2 1 2. Check check check. Sounds good enough to me, right? Yeah, I'm happy, I guess.
So we've heard that clip. Stay with me. Now,
how the fuck would I know?
Stay with me here, okay? I'm about to share this clip.
Me constantly, non-stop, with shit that's complete distraction.
Bob Lazar. Now, stay with me.
I'm trying to do
You'll see
at all.
what I'm getting at.
At all.
Let me play the clip, and then we'll talk about both.
115 is strictly an extraterrestrial material. Element 115 is in the top of the reactor. And the base of the reactor is something similar to a cyclotron. It's a particle accelerator. A particle is accelerated to high speed and then deflected up a small tube, and it's aimed at the 115. This transmutes the 115. This causes a reaction, a radiation emission that we really haven't seen before. It produces antimatter. This antimatter is guided down a tuned tube and reacts with a gas. When matter and antimatter react, they convert to 100% energy. This heat energy is converted to electrical power in the reactor itself. This is done through a thermoelectric converter, and this electrical power is used to power other subsystems on the 115 is strictly an extraterrestrial material. Element 115 is...
So you may be saying, Patrick, what does that have to do with anything, right? What does that have to do with anything with what Gary Nolan said? Well, if you ask me, it was the moment that Gary Nolan said, let's go back to it. I'm going to play it. I'll play this clip again. It's right at the beginning.
So I remember talking to a physicist who is, deeply involved with the program, meaning he actually knows a lot about, and he has top security clearances. And I said, so they're moving really fast, and they're doing it in a way that they don't have an onboard fusion reactor. He said, well, we can't find their energy source.
Right there. We can't find their energy source. They don't have an onboard fusion reactor. So what is Bob Lazar talking about? What is element 115? Literally, he's stated that is the energy source. So by Gary Nolan making that statement, in my opinion, it sort of debunks a lot of people's stories out there that claim to have the knowledge of this energy source of these UFOs. Now, this is just according to Gary Nolan. Maybe his source is wrong, right? This physicist who's in the program, which I always ask, what the hell does that mean? The program? What program? The program, like, it's like when they go, they are doing this, and you're like, who's they? And they can't ever answer the question, right? It's the same sort of thing. These terms just get thrown around. What does program mean? Like, what the hell does that mean? The legacy program, Patrick. Oh, okay. What legacy? But what are you talking about?
Jensen.
G'day, legends. I hope that you're having a fantastic day and...
Because he...
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We consider it fun.
Hello everyone, today is 3rd of December, now it's about 9 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And there are quite a few very significant developments and news that I'd like to share with you for this moment. And I will start with this report of Vzglyad newspaper about so-called peace plan that envoy of Trump in Ukraine and Russia, special envoy Kat Kellogg, has or used to have, at least. I translated this news, dear friends. So let's go through some details here. So Trump's envoy's plan for resolving the conflict in Ukraine has been published. the plan of their envoy of their elected US President Donald Trump for Ukraine, Kat Kellogg, called her with their
good. Historically, the United States has never.
All right, so today we're
size, right? They spent over $200 billion in Syria just for
and the ability to look inside of another human mind and calculate what's going on in there, which again is quite required for artificial compassion and artificial empathy. So here's what we did, and we put out a press release on that to say, hey, we put a brand new world record on theory of mind benchmarks.
This 14-year-old girl's argument completely just.
So World Labs is a spatial intelligence AI company that is building large world models to perceive, generate, and interact with the 3D world. Now, this company aims to lift AI models from the 2D plane of pixels to...
Welcome to Next On News, the home of deep dives into the unexplained, the hidden, and the controversial. Today we're Welcome to Next On News, the home of deep dives into the unexplained, the hidden, and the controversial. Today we're venturing into a prediction so intricate and layered that it might just leave you questioning everything you know. Cliff High, a name many of you will recognize from his webbot project, is once again stirring the pot with a bold claim about tomorrow, December 3rd, 2024. High, known for his linguistic analysis and temporal markers, believes an interview between Donald Trump and Joe Rogan on October 15th signaled a countdown to something big. And here's the key takeaway. He's calling it a melee, a term deliberately vague but filled with implications. From aerial phenomena to geopolitical upheaval, this prediction suggests that December 3rd could usher us into what High describes as a sci-fi world. Today we'll dissect the prediction, connect it to broader conspiracies, and explore the agendas that might be at play if this forecast proves true. Let's break it all down. Before diving into the details, let's talk about Cliff High. He's a self-proclaimed linguistic analyst whose webbot project scours massive amounts of text data to detect subconscious patterns in public discourse. According to High, these patterns can reveal future events, what he calls temporal markers. Now let's be real, High is a polarizing figure. Some see him as a visionary who's nailed predictions like the rise of Bitcoin. Others view him as a eccentric with a flair for dramatic forecasts. But regardless of where you stand, his ability to tap into cultural undercurrents is worth examining. High's latest prediction hinges on an interview between Donald Trump and Joe Rogan, which he claims serves as a temporal marker. Think of it as the domino that sets everything in motion. The interview took place on October 15th, 2024, and High's analysis suggests that 39 days later, on December 3rd, tomorrow, something significant will unfold. He calls it a melee, which could mean anything from aerial conflicts to UFO encounters. The ambiguity is frustrating but also deliberate. It keeps us questioning. Here's the thing. Rogan's platform is massive, and Trump's appearance on this show reached millions. Was this event engineered to plant a narrative, to condition us for what's to come? Now, before we dismiss this as wild speculation, let's look at historical predictions that seemed equally outlandish until they came true. Take High's early webbot forecasts about Bitcoin. Back in the 2000s, he predicted the rise of digital currencies, even pinpointing key price surges. At the time, Bitcoin wasn't even a household name. Then there's the eerie correlation between linguistic patterns and major global events like the 2008 financial crash. While High's predictions often lack precision, they tap into underlying anxieties that eventually manifest in unexpected ways. What makes this different? The specificity of the date, December 3rd, and the recurring themes of aerial phenomena and conflict. These aren't random predictions. They're rooted in patterns High claims to have identified over decades. So let's ask the big question. If this prediction is accurate, what agenda could it serve? First, the mention of aerial conflicts aligns suspiciously well with the global trends. The US has its Space Force, China is weaponizing satellites, Russia is testing hypersonic missiles. A major event involving aerial phenomena could justify further militarization of space. Think back to the Gulf of Tonkin incident. A questionable naval encounter dragged the US into Vietnam. Could December 3rd be a modern day equivalent? designed to galvanize support for a new kind of war. Let's talk UFOs, or as they're now called, UAPs. The timing of this prediction coincides with an unprecedented wave of UAP disclosures. Whistleblowers like David Grush are claiming the government has non-human craft. Could this be the moment when the narrative shifts from speculative to undeniable? But as always, there's a twist. What if this disclosure isn't about truth but control? If High is right, this could be a staged event to manipulate public perception, perhaps even to rally humanity around a common threat. High's term SciFi World evokes visions of advanced AI, surveillance, and societal control. An event of this magnitude could serve as a smokescreen for rolling out new technologies. Think biometric tracking, AI governance, or even central bank digital currencies. Remember, crises often pave the way for policies that would be unthinkable under normal circumstances. Just as 9/11 brought sweeping surveillance laws, December 3rd could usher in the next wave of technological control. Hollywood has a knack for preparing us for what's to come. Think of movies like Independence Day or War of the Worlds. They normalize the idea of extraterrestrial threats and humanity's response. Even the term Sci-Fi World feels like it's been pulled straight out of a Netflix series. Could Cliff High's prediction be part of a broader effort to condition us for a new reality? And if so, who's pulling the strings? As the date is now upon us, here are the signs to watch for. Increased UAP activity. Reports of aerial phenomena are already on the rise. Are we seeing the groundwork being laid? Geopolitical tensions. The US, Russia, China are all on edge. Could these tensions spill into the skies? Media narratives. Keep an eye on how the media and the news and mainstream networks all frame the UAP phenomena and any particular military exercises which may link to that. Subtle shifts in language specifically could hint at larger plans. Now, we obviously have to address the elephant in the room. What if December 3rd comes and goes without incident? Firstly, it doesn't invalidate the questions we've raised. Even if this prediction doesn't materialize, the patterns and agendas we've explored are still worth examining. Second, it's possible the event High predicts won't be immediately visible. As with many global shifts, the full impact might only become clear in hindsight. Cliff High's prediction is a puzzle, a mix of linguistic analysis, speculative foresight, and cultural undercurrents. Whether December 3rd, 2024 marks the dawn of a sci-fi world or just another day, it forces us to question the narratives we're fed and the agendas shaping our future. So what do you think? Is this prediction a genuine warning, a clever narrative, or something else entirely? As always, the references for today's video are in the description below. If you found this deep dive intriguing, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Nexo News. Together, let's keep asking the questions that matter. See you next time. Welcome back to Nexo. Welcome back to Nexo.
Virtually. I mean, the
Jensen Huang.
Crazy things. Number two.
Historic.
Always keep your eyes wide open to prepare for anything. How do you view what is coming? Because it seems like
people telling members.
He was actually on the NASA UAP hearing that NASA had, which was, again,
the kind of ceasefire.
Yep.
The South Korea.
because he's just
Hey, how is everybody doing on this Tuesday, December 3rd?
Today we're
had to get past Diddy.
Psicoactivo. So, I'm going to give you guys a little update on the interview with George Schnapp that I'm supposed to have this month. He told me via email that I had to reach out to him at the beginning of December so we could set it up. And I just sent him the email today. I didn't want it to be right on the first, you know, a little too on the nose. And I know the guy is really busy with all the results from his Netflix show, and he has a lot of interviews going on. He was just on the UAP Studies podcast, and shout out to the UAP Studies podcast crew. They get some of the best guests that I can think of. They spoke for a little less than 2 hours, and there were two things that I wanted to talk to you guys about. The first one is George's opinion on what's going on in the UK right now, which is a lot of incursions of drones. And George has a very interesting take on it. So take a look at this.
They build craft that look like ours. It's underway right now. These drone things that are popping up over air bases, drones, a nice prosaic term that calms us down. Well, maybe somebody went to Amazon and bought one, or Walmart or something. They're trying to shoot those things down. They haven't been able to using the kind of sophisticated anti-drone technology. It doesn't work on these things. I think those drones they're something else, and they're telling us something. Might be people in the government who can figure this out better than I can, but I mean, the overall message is this stuff is complicated. We're taking you guys along one step at a time. It's not going to be overnight. We're giving you glimpses of the larger universe and the larger reality in the world, and you got to work at it, you know? And I think that, again, is my advice to people interested in the UFO topic. Be patient. Work at it. You can't just read UFO books and read stuff on Twitter and expect to understand this stuff. You got to educate yourself on a much broader scale. I learn stuff every day that I didn't know before about this topic. I wish I could retain all of it. My house, if you could see it, it's a mess. I mean, I probably have 10,000 books now that on a variety of subjects related to this somehow. It's a wealth of information, and you can't learn it overnight. You just can't.
Yeah. So George seems to think that these are not drones, that these drones mimic human technology. That's not new. It is something that has been talked about before. We know that Dr. Gary Nolan spoke about this before, that these things have the capability to mimic craft. So I don't know what information George has about this specifically, but there was a recent Tom Rogan article on the Washington Examiner where he comes out with the conclusion that based on his investigation, these may be either Chinese or Russian drones. And this is an escalation of some sorts. And he claims that the Air Force Office of Special Investigations were already called to get involved in this, and they already are. And also the UK Army and the UK Navy already got involved. So I don't know if we're going to be seeing more of these incursions and sightings, but I'm guessing we will, probably. And also, there's this theory going around. Patrick at Vetted already covered it. Jack at Cosmic Road already covered it. I want to leave both links in the description so you can check them out. But this turned into a broken telephone game really quickly. And I want to clear a few things up, though. This guy that predicted what was about to happen on December the 3rd, people started saying that it was going to be an alien invasion and all that stuff. All these predictions were saying is that a group of remote viewers saw some kind of a melee or a dogfight in the sky. That's all they said. They didn't say anything about alien invasion or anything like that. So this is being over sensationalized, as many topics within the UFO community tend to be. That's all they said. And if this happens, we still don't know if this is conventional tech made by humans against future technology made by humans or unknown technology made by humans. It is also possible. George Knapp seems to think they are not made by humans. And he just said that they're trying to shoot them down. I don't think that's a great idea, but what do I know? The other part that I found really, really interesting was George talking about how some first-hand whistleblowers were offered to these Congress people before the hearing on November the 13th, but something happened that didn't allow them to be part of the hearings. I don't know which whistleblowers George Knapp is talking about. I'm pretty sure he knows exactly who it is, but something happened. Someone moved something. Someone influenced the final list of names, and we didn't get to see any first-hand whistleblowers, which is what we were clamoring for so long. And I don't know if we're ever gonna get those, to be honest with you. We can't keep expecting for the US government to give us the goodies willingly when they very clearly don't want to. They've done repeated stuff that tells you very clearly they do not want this out. And they will go to any length necessary to keep it that way. And George is one of the people that I respect the most in this topic. He's the reason Area 51 is known. He was the one who made the first report about Bob Lazar. He had John Lear with him. They spoke about some of the most outlandish stuff you could hear at the time. Obviously, host Kehoe. But if I trust someone who is dedicated to the topic for decades, that someone is George. And as a journalist, you will understand why I have like a soft spot for him. And to me, he's always been true to what he's trying to report on. He knows, and he's acknowledged before, that there is something that happens with people who investigate this stuff, who try to research this stuff, who often get false information and they don't realize it. Probably this has happened to George in the past, and it's happened to pretty much any journalist who's been trying to investigate this in the past, because that's the system that is in place. We know that it's happened to people like Linda Moulton Howe. We know that it happened multiple times to Jaime Maussan. It just happens. That's the way they operate. And I've been going back again and again to the interview I did with Danny Sheehan, where he says that Project Mockingbird hasn't stopped. It just changed names. It changed the setting. It is now happening more prominently over all of the social media. And it's true. So I want to show you this clip from George Knapp at the UAP Studies podcast, so you guys can check out what he said about the hearings and about these whistleblowers. So here's the video.
These members of Congress, Nancy Mace, saying, we've been told we can't ask questions about XYZ. Told by who? Who told you? What questions can't you ask? Not very clear. They had that hearing. They were offered direct hands-on whistleblowers. I can tell you that for sure. They didn't take the offer. There's that 12-page report that was submitted to the record. Jeremy Corbell is the one that gave it to him. I know because I had read it and helped in preparing them, putting it together. And Jeremy gave it to them the night before. He showed it to Michael Schellenberger. He had never seen it. The committee thanks Michael in open hearing. Thank you for giving us that report. Michael didn't give it to him. He had never seen it before. Jeremy gave it to him. They distorted that. There were people in the room who were watching them, so they didn't ask certain questions. They have been unable to get a skiff to take some of these whistleblowers in. What the hell's the problem in Congress members getting a skiff so they can hear sensitive matters. I don't understand it. I don't understand who's pulling all the strings here, but I suspect it's the same people that have always been pulling these strings that are. Congress, I think, is a direct threat. They have subpoena power. They have authority to get to the bottom of this, or at least to try and to raise hell if they can't get answers. And I think there are definite efforts underway to discourage members of Congress from pushing too hard on this. And the same with mainstream media. New York Times, that started this ball rolling, they're not covering UFOs anymore. And if they do, it's a negative kind of a thing. Washington Post had an opportunity to do the Dave Grush editorial and sat on it forever, and finally Grush gave up. The LA Times, I don't know that they ever do UFO stories unless it's kind of a feature. 60 Minutes did a really great piece. I know they're still interested because I communicate with the producer there, and but they haven't got clearance to do it again. The guys who pull the strings are really good at this stuff, and they're still making their presence known. Arrow gets created. Oh boy, that's great. That sounds great. After this terrific work by the UAP task force, led by this guy, Jay Stratton, who is a giant in this field, and we're going to be hearing more from him in the near future. UAP task force pulls together some great evidence. Some of it leaked out. Jeremy Corbell and I reported it. They owned up to it. They didn't lie. They said, yes, that's ours. And yes, it's unknown craft. So after that, they create something called AIMSOG, which is a ridiculous acronym that could never be pronounced. And then Arrow gets created. And we're all hopeful. Great, Arrow. Sean Kirkpatrick comes in. Everybody who knows him knew what was going to happen. They put out that ridiculous report and basically crapped all over everybody. They had invited all these whistleblowers to come forward, loyal patriots, people with high security clearances, had worked on nuclear missiles, had worked in intelligence agencies. They invited them in. They wanted them to testimony. They allowed them to say whatever they want, and then they disregarded all of it. That, to me, was a clear sign they are never going to cough this up unless they're forced to do it. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
No, but
How do we force it?
Yeah. So, what do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about George saying that he knows these are not man-made tech, the ones at the UK, the sightings? What do you guys think about what he discussed on the first-hand whistleblowers that were never presented to Congress? Who made the decision to prevent that? Who do you think? We can already get some guesses, right? And I'm going to leave, obviously, the link to the full show on the description so you guys can check it out. They talk about a lot of stuff. They talk about cattle mutilations. They talk about George's work overall and how he knows that no matter how much information he's investigated over the years, you still can't pinpoint to a specific thing that the phenomenon is. He says that it's always very broad. And I think that's very important to keep in mind. Yes, there is evidence from the... all they know is that it's real. They felt it. They experienced it. And that's why they came forward. They were brave enough to come forward. And we got to keep investigating. That's the conclusion that I get from this. But let me know what you think about George's thoughts on this. And if you like the content you see, like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you can be notified when a new video drops. If you want to support the channel in any other way, there's a bunch of links in the description. Take your pick. There's PayPal. There's Buy Me a Coffee. You can buy yourself something. You can get something for the podcast. Every help is always appreciated. So thank you very much for your help. And without further ado, I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye.
A pretty grim.
Produced Adam and Eve and all the people in the Bible. And so Now note, by the way, the Semitic peoples, the Palestinians, have adopted a religion that is also worshiping the Elohim, because all of Hello humans, getting a slightly late start. We had storms last night and it's still raining and likely to be stormy again later tonight. This is the pattern we're getting into now. Anyway, obviously all kinds of crap going on the planet, and the Khazarian mafia is out sacrificing Jews again. The Khazarian mafia, by the way, are very, very, very anti-Semitic. Okay, there are whole classes of, like whole categories of research that are done, that are paid for. A lot of them are actually paid for by the Khazarian mafia themselves, way up at the top. But they institute a lot of this stuff anyway for the regular. But they do a lot of studies, genetic studies, health studies, all of this kind of stuff on specifically Ashkenazi Jews. All right, and they label them as AJs, AGs. There's this other German word for them, and or just Ashkenazi. And so you'll see whole studies, like health studies and all this kind of stuff, written up like all the regular ones, showing up in all of the, national databases and this kind of stuff that are exclusively dealing with Ashkenazi. And they are doing it as a, supposedly to, find out some other greater question. And so recently I've read a bunch of these recently because I was investigating some other stuff. But in any event, ran across some of them, and they are, these guys were investigating longevity markers, okay? And so they were doing both a retrospective study, which means they looked at other studies and other data, but they also had, I think there was like 72 Ashkenazi males in this study. Now, they went to some degree of validation to assure themselves that these guys were all 100% Ashkenazi. And so they were really tight on the genetics. They really wanted to get into the genetics of this. Healthy aging at various degrees, or various markers. So they were doing them on the decade. So they had a cohort that was 70 years old. They had another cohort that was 80 years old. They had another cohort that was 90 years old. Now, I will make a couple of statements that are my conclusions, okay? One of my conclusions is that the Khazarian mafia, which it's kind of a, it's sort of a no-brainer. It's a big well-done moment. The Khazarian mafia is intently interested in any form of technology that will extend their lives, okay? They are keyed to life extension, and to a degree that is, it's beyond a fetish, it is an obsession, okay? And so they are intently interested in life extension at all levels, but they only want it for Ashkenazi. They don't even want it for the Judeans. So here's where it gets real murky. If you start talking about Jews, in my opinion, you need to qualify it, okay? Because Jews are not Semitic people. So you can say that Israel is anti-Semitic. They hate the Palestinians and they hate all Semitic peoples, all right? This is from the Khazarian Mafia. The Khazarian Mafia hates the Semitic people, the Judeans, because the Elohim abandoned the Ashkenazi and went to the Middle East and took up with the Semitic people. And there they achieved what they were after, which was Adam and Eve. They could not achieve that with the Ashkenazi, and that really, really tweaks out the Ashkenazi and the Khazarian mafia. If the ones that think about this stuff, right? They are they claim to be the chosen ones, but they were the abandoned ones, right? The Elohim said, "Nah, we're not getting shit out of these people. Let's go find this other base stock, and we'll do our genetic modification on them," which they did, and then they produced Adam and Eve and all the people in the Bible. And so now note, by the way, the Semitic peoples, the Palestinians, have adopted a religion that is also worshiping the Elohim, because all of Mohammedism comes from Muhammad's interaction with the Archangel Michael, who was one of the Elohim, right? That was not his real name or anything, this being. Anyway.
That should help a bit.
So if you get into these studies, you see that the Khazarian Mafia is very, very, very concerned with life extension to a degree that is just intriguing, okay? Very, very, very intriguing. And they are so keyed in on it at this time for some reason that is not, I mean, there's a heightened level of interest in it at this time that is being prompted by something that I don't have a view of yet. I don't know what's driving them on this, but it is indeed happening. And, you know, I mean, they're just like seriously torqued out over this stuff right at this moment. Anyway, and so they do all of these studies. So the Khazarians are aware of what I am aware of, that the Ashkenazis are not Jews. The Ashkenazis are not Semitic people. And you can actually go to well-educated and very bright Jewish guys, and you can talk to them, and in the talking to them, you can get them to admit that the Ashkenazi have no genetic relationship with the Middle East or the Judeans. And if you go and look at the actual literature in these studies, you can go and find in national databases in Switzerland, in the United States, in England, in these health databases, you can find copies of this one particular, well, actually there's three now, 3 studies in which these guys studied the genetic components of the Judeans and the Ashkenazi, and they come to the conclusion that 98.4%, or some small fraction thereof, of all Jews are not in any way connected genetically to the Middle East in any way, shape, or form. So, ergo, the Balfour decision on the part of Rothschild, Rockefeller, and all the other Jews, the World Jewish Council, to create Israel is a bogus piece of shit. There was no connection between the Ashkenazi, who call themselves Jews, and the Middle East. That is a claim based on the Judeans in the Torah, but the Judeans are not in any way genetically related to the Ashkenazi. They are not the same group of people. And so 98% of the people that we think of as Jews have no connection to the Middle East, and only that very small fraction, right? So less than 2% of all the people in Israel have any, quote, right to be there, in the sense that they have a genetic lineage that goes back to people living in the region of Judea, in the region of Israel. Real Semites. Okay, and so Israel is an anti-Semitic state. They hate the Semitic people, and they are not Semites. So I can, say, hey, Ashkenazis are fuckers. They're not really in general, The Ashkenazi are nice people. I like a lot of them. I know a lot of them. But the Khazarian Mafia are certainly fuckers. And the Khazarian Mafia aren't Jews. The Khazarian Mafia have no connection to the Middle East, and I'm not being anti-Semitic in saying that, because they're not Semites. Okay, and they even prove it themselves. They go to great lengths to prove it. The amount of money and effort they put into these genetic studies on the Ashkenazi is really, really impressive. They don't give a shit about the Goyim, about the cattle, about you and me, all the non-Jews, and they're not putting any money into non-Jew health. The only time they do that is when it can benefit them, mostly in this life extension thing. I find the Khazarian Mafia to be really weird, okay? A lot of it filters out to the Ashkenazi, and so it makes the Ashkenazi a little weird too. Boy. So anyway, so you start getting into all of these genetic studies that the Khazarian Mafia pays for, using the Ashkenazi as the template for this, and you find that it concentrates on maybe 3 or 4 basic areas, but all of these go to the idea of extending life. And we see that this theme also runs through, what's that guy's name? Yuval or something, the number 2 dude, or the top science dude for the mother weapons, is all about transhumanism. And the whole point of transhumanism is to not die. Okay, so you end up as a machine, but, you know, you're not dead. That's their thinking. Just this morning, we've got chemtrails, but it's hello humans, hello humans. It's Sunday, 1st of December. It's 7:47, and I was just giving you a little shot of the beach here early in the morning. It was gorgeous this morning. We've got chemtrails, but they were far out, so you had a good view of the stars and stuff. I'm gonna walk on over now and turn on lights and things, and then swap this camera over, and we'll start here. I've got some some stuff you won't want to hear, but you're going to need to hear it, so hang on just a minute. The lights reflect on the windows, so I have to turn them all off there. All right, so let's see, I've got to set this stuff up. Oh, shit. Trying to go through the hole in the wall. All right. Make sure I don't screw myself over too badly here with perspective.
There we go. Now I've got a little bit of a delay, but I can hear me and I can hear Cliff. Floor. Hole in the floor.
Okay, so it should be locked in place. Who's that reflection? Nope. It's this guy. There we go. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I've got to get stuff done, so I had to sort of rush into this morning. It's bread baking day. I've got to clean up, all different kinds of things going on. And I've got some software running. Okay, so it's Sunday, December 1. According to our calculations from 2009, we should get into a period of big upset on December 3rd. So we're looking at Tuesday, a couple of days from now. What I wanted to discuss, though, while it is temporally related, is about Trump fucking up. Oh wow, there's a giant new chemtrail heading on out over the ocean. I'll see if I can get some photos of that when we get done here. But anyway, I wanted to get this out. It's not Trump fucking up, it's really the Trumpsters, and it's not really a fuck up, it's more that they're gonna have to learn. So they're making errors now that will be corrected, and so they won't become mistakes, but it's gonna be very emotionally disturbing for lots of people for many different reasons, but basically because it all goes to money, right? Or currency, okay, not money. So hang on a second. Let's do some stuff. Just a second. Okay. Okay, so this is countdown to 0. All right, so this is going to take a little explaining. All right, so I started doing data runs in 1997. It took me a long time, took me like 18 months to get that first set of data processed enough. Now bear in mind, I didn't have the lexicon really established. By the time we got to 2001 and the attacks on the towers, my data had forecasted back in March of that year. I finally got around to writing it up. I published it on George Ure's site, as I recall, like July 12th or something. All right, so that data took that long to process, and even then, even in 2001, I was still working on the lexicon such that I had not gotten up to the T's in, so it was shown as a military/accident. Okay, and of course it was deliberate, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so it took that long, and it took me a number of years thereafter to get the rest of the lexicon defined in terms of all these values for each and every one of the words, including values that go to time, okay? And time is something that we're just guessing at. I've been studying it now for 30 years, and I realize how pig ignorant I am of time, right? The crows out there know more about time than I do. All right, so anyway, in 1997, we start getting a data set that made no sense. And it didn't make any sense all the way through the next really official run, which was done in 1999. Thereafter, I started getting a little bit more productive, shortening the process time on each one, formalizing it, getting it down to, you know, where I could pop things off in an automated fashion, having software that controlled other software and monitored it for me. It was just a huge operation, right? Took me, I came across on the idea in 1993. I started writing, formalizing the code in my head and writing notes on it in 1993, okay?
Satisfied I can.
Very late in 93, December of 93. So it took from 93 until 2003 before I started getting into really productive runs on a consistent schedule. I was trying for 2 runs a year because they were massive. I was writing 300-page reports, whittling it down to 100 pages to sell, and avoiding putting in 99% of the data that was showing up because it was just too voluminous, right?
Now I can hear my mic
so, and also the interpretation and all of that. So
Such
anyway,
as it is.
So, but in 1997, and firmed up in 99, there was this set that made no sense at all. And it talked about
my mom
three...
is typing to me.
Let me put it this
My
way.
other
3
mom.
money. Okay.
Right.
3 money. And that was basically the primary aspect, the defining linguistic set that everything else, or the linguistic pattern or phrase that everything else within that set was attached to. And so it was 3 money. And it made no sense at all, right? And I didn't have my timing and everything. But around 2000, and it kept growing. With each and every run, I would get a repeat of this set that would add more stuff to it. Part of that was an artifact of my doing the software and expanding it, okay? So the initial runs were not as expansive in what they were looking at. Part of that was an artifact of the internet growing so that there were more of you bastards out there saying shit and thus leaking out prescient knowledge. So, and also part of that was the expansion of the lexicon so we could get more cross-links because I had more words to find. So there were these technical aspects that were intruding on this. It wasn't like it was, you know, growing psychically over time or anything. It was more like it's always been lying out there completely exposed and fully detailed, but our eyes have to be trained to hunt through the weeds to see it, kind of a thing. So it's more on our end than on the side of nature. All right, so, okay, so the three money thing over time, and we're talking all the way into 2003. Okay, so in 2003, it sort of firms up, right? It firms up into 2003, and it starts looking like an offer. And you can check the old Alta reports, which are on beyondmystic.net for free. You can go and get the ones that I've posted out there. We've lost a lot. I did audio ones, and it was a little disjointed over, you know, the 20 plus years of delivering the reports. But anyway, so in 2003, this three money set, which starts growing and growing and growing, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, has this aspect in it that says offer. So the primary aspect to that attribute was going to an offer. Turns out the offer was going to be made to the populace. And it was going to be made to the populace by government. And so that was like firmed up and understood within these sets, maybe by 2004, because in 2004 we had the early hints of the ultimate, or of the financial crash that was going to occur in 2008, which did occur in 2008 to the fucking day that I predicted. Hang on, I'm getting all whipped up here. Anyway, so success is you know, invigorating. Anyway, so in 2004, we had some pretty good prescient sets, and one of them went a great deal to defining this relationship around the three money, okay? And here's what the deal was. It took us a number of years from this period of really initial firming up out to, let's say, maybe it was 2009, all right? So at least 6, if not 7 years, so it might have been 2010, where it was really firmed up. And you'll see it in the Alta reports gaining a detail and a framework as each report came out. In that period of time, we arrived to this point where we understand that the three money thing comes because the banks collapse, okay? Because the underlying currency and system that the banks float on top of collapses. And thus it creates a giant problem for government all around the planet. Now, I can go into the, you know, at the time we were doing this, the interpretation of this data was within the firm grasp of the old world order, right? The Elohim worship cult, the Jew-owned central banks conquering all of the planet, all of that shit was going on during that period of time, and they were firming their grip up. Just when all this data was saying, hey, wait a second, all this shit, inflationary collapse of the underlying financial currency, the idea of currency, the idea of a debt instrument that you borrow from a Jew-owned central bank, and then you have to pay back to a Jew-owned central bank wars to conquer you. So this whole thing is coming out, right? The whole understanding of it all. In these data sets, it went to the idea that there would be this collapse of the existing currency, and it would go away, and it would take with it the banking structure. And that's why I think XRP is shit, because XRP was designed, so to speak, to replace the SWIFT system, and the banks are going to fail, so who needs it, right? Anyway, that's a secondary issue.
But anyway, so the banking system here is going to take a big hit when its product, the currency. So you can think of bank as a company that produces tires, okay? All of the central banks in the world produce tires. Big, fat, pneumatic tires of all different kinds of shapes, the big, giant ones, little tiny ones, et cetera, et cetera. And then along comes anti-gravity, and nobody needs tires anymore. So the banks are out of business of producing tires, right? And that's the concept that's going to happen here, is that the banks collapse because the underlying idea of currency goes away. All right, now it doesn't go away instantly. It takes a number of years. The chaos involved in this is long, but there's a very interesting period of time that is 3 months. Okay, the 3-month period of time is the duration over which this process occurs. Initially, I had thought that it might take years, but because it seemed unlikely that it would be as short a period as 3 months, given how slow and laborious and huge and massive government is in this period of time when those interpretations first started being made about that data set. It made no sense. Couldn't do anything in 3 months. So I figured the first part of this, let me get back to this. Okay, hang on. So the details of this is that government is going to be forced into making 3 offers. You're starting to see a pattern there, right? 3s were in this thing like you wouldn't believe. We live in an ontology, so this is pertinent. So anyway, so they're trying to tell us something. Anyway, government in this data set was going to be forced to make 3 offers. The first offer was to fix it. The second offer was to rebirth it. And then the third offer was going to be something new, okay? And so all 3 of these offers are going to be made to the populace to replace the dying money on which the banking system floats, and it'll be done over the period of approximately 3 months. Bear in mind, our timing is wonky as shit, and it'll be a situation where the government is forced to do it, okay? Now, the kicker is that we're going to reject these, okay? So Trump fucks up is the title of this video. I already knew that when I woke up this morning and decided I was going to tell you guys this, because I've been working all this shit for days. There's all kinds of very intense financial language in the last part of the data set that I just processed through. And you can go watch Jean-Claude's Beyond Mystic channel tonight on Rumble or on X or whatever, the Beyond Mystic channel, because he's going to do his Wacky Woo show, and I sent him some of that data because he asked and he wants to talk about it, right? It's not anything I really want to get into because it's just, there's so many different moving parts in it that it takes a lot of effort to get a cohesive picture of it across. And if you don't try that, at least, everybody's going to go away with pointed and wrong because they'll be too narrowly focused understanding. Okay, so there was all of this going on. I decided this morning when I got up at 3:30, okay, I'm going to make a video today. I'll get into this and I'll explain what's going to happen here, okay, and how Trump fucks up. All right, now, it's not really Trump. I think it's the Trumpsters. Trump indeed may be participating. His mind may be participating in this, okay, because here's what's happening. The dollar's going away, and Trump has already announced yesterday he's going to get really fierce and give all these countries 100% tariffs if they try and abandon the dollar. And he's an asshole. He's stupid. That'll never work. They don't want the dollar. We don't want the dollar. The dollar is a debt instrument. And it's a debt instrument that was used to conquer us. And why should we want this thing, right? Why should we go into debt to give Israel more money to conquer us? You know, because Israel is basically the deep state. That's the center of it. Anyway, so they're going to make 3 offers to it. And Trump has already, so this is why I decided to come on out and say this, bring this issue out, is that Trump's already coming up with number 1. He's already saying that he's going to fix the dollar and we're going to still be the world reserve currency. because we can't have currency anymore. We've got to get to money. And if it's the debt instrument, it's not money. If Trump controls it, if it's a world reserve and it isn't gold, it's currency, okay? So Trump is fucking up. He's fucking up big time, in my opinion. Now, that may be strategic, okay? I don't know how savvy Trump really is to the woo and the ontology and what the fuck's going on and all of the emotional waves that are going through all of humanity right now, right? He may be dialed in, I don't know. And it would be within if I were doing things, I would indeed use the announcement he did yesterday as a strategic move on my way to something else. But the data had forecast that they would offer to fix the dollar, and we'd all say, adrenochrome as an industry exists because of the Federal Reserve. Mind control as an industry exists because of the Federal Reserve. The CIA as an abusive organization exists because of the Federal Reserve. So it's got to go. It's dying. So Trump really fucks up trying to keep it alive. Then everybody rejects it, and it's like, whoa, boy, did we make a big error. Boy, did we make an almost mistake. If we kept going on to that idea, it would be a huge fucking mistake. That'll dawn on them. I think it'll only take about 15 days. So I think this shit starts off sometime between December 3rd and December 15th or 18th in there. And then they've already offered this solution, and then it's going to take the planet about 15 days to reject it. Then they're going to come back and they're going to offer to rebirth the dollar. And basically, they're going to try and engineer a new petrodollar based on USA oil production and stored gold. Okay, it's not going to be convertible, I don't think. I don't think they'll go that route. But they're going to do something that won't be the old Federal Reserve note, okay? It'll still be a reconstituted Federal Reserve note, still a debt instrument. They'll still be trying to hold on to this undeserved privilege of having the global reserve currency, okay? That's an evil, evil, evil thing for all humans. It's what keeps Africa in poverty. It's what allows the Jews to manipulate all the countries, and the Elohim worship cult and the World Economic Forum to buy Canada, buy your government, and Soros to buy all it. Soros never made money. He got money from the central banks and he used it to buy all these prosecutors and all of these government officials that he owns. By the way, all that information's coming out. There's going to be the Soros list. Okay, that's even bigger than Diddy. It's even bigger than Epstein of the Soros list coming out. I kid you not. Anyway, got to get back to this. I got to get my bread in. Okay, so the banks fail. All this shit happened over time. You can snapshot that if you want. The government's going to be forced to make 3 offers to the populace, and every single one of the offers is going to result in a big fuck you to the government. Now, the Trumpsters are the government now. I had thought that this shit might pop off as early as the Obama administration, okay? Because Obama had, it was artificial, it was created by the media, but he had a big oomph. Everybody liked him, right? Like even some of the woo people, like, dumb shit David Wilcock liked him. And they were promoting Obama as the savior of humanity and shit, right? I knew that wasn't true, but it still seemed like maybe this could happen on his watch. Because one of the key things about this is that a popular supported government is going to simply puke in fear at the sudden turn of the emotional support forum when they proffer this, and we all say, fuck no, dude, we're not doing that. You can take that shit and shove it up your ass. Then they're going to come up with the second one, which is going to be this new form of a petrodollar. And we're going to all say, hey, drill as fast as you fucking can and just flood the market, drop the price, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not going to go for another debt instrument and keeping the Federal Reserve around. Fuck it. All right? This is a revolution. Comprende? Anyway, so then they're going to come up with something new. This is going to be a half-assed thought. They're going to be desperate. The time frame looks like they start with number 3 here, fixing it. And then there's like a 15-day period before it dawns on them that they fucked up, okay? We knew they fucked up as soon as they announced their plan. But it takes them 15 days to basically come to a consensus in government that this shit ain't gonna fly, right? That turd is dead lying there on the street. And then they go into this number 2 thing, which they try and sell for about 30 plus days. And so this whole process takes over the course of 3 months, which if we look at it, that would be mid-December to mid-January, and we've been getting lots of data now about the middle of January through the middle of February and then into the middle of March as being these like big hiccup points. And I think that those hiccup points are connected to this process. So after 30 days of them trying to sell solution number 2, which we don't want to get further into debt to a bunch of assholes we don't know and don't like, then they come up with number 3. And then they spend some time trying to sell number 3 while the rest of us say, okay, fuck that and move on. All right, so the number 3 will also get rejected. Okay, it's not going to fly. It just simply can't work. Their idea that is put out here is half-assed. And you can just, it sort of looks like it's okay. It sort of quasi makes sense at the time it's offered. But within a few days of coming out, like within 15 or 20 days of coming out, we get another one of these, nope, not going to deal with that shit. And this one fails on its own because it was not well formed, the thought, right? This is complex stuff. They're desperate not to have the asset structure of the planet go away. And you can see why. Trump is an asset person, right? He understands currency. He understands the Jewish banking system. He has claims to the ownership of this physical matter. Don't own it. That's my opinion, all right? So you have nominal systemic authority over dealing with it, but you don't own that shit. Anyway, so, but his metaphor for his reality is based on his understanding of the money system, of the currency system. He's never dealt with money in his entire life. I have, okay? I've done illegal deals where I've traded gold, cryptos, all different kinds of shit.
That's what the fuck I'm doing.
The government said I should not have. And so I have dealt with money because criminals don't deal in debt, right? You know, if you've got to turn it into a bank to get value out of it, you know, it's a point of weakness in the whole system. Now, at some point, criminals have to deal in debt, so like the stupid cartels are still dealing in debt. But let me tell you, you know, these guys have, like the drug cartels in Mexico, they have warehouses full of currency.
Stupid.
And I don't
even know what he's talking
about
because
I won't go into details, but some of them may be getting more savvy, and we may see a flood of drug currency into cryptos, gold, etc. That's just going to boost the value of that kind of stuff to the moon, because the cartels are starting to understand that, you know, within 3 to 4 months, their warehouses may simply be you know, useful pieces of paper to sell as toilet paper. And that's all.
If not before.
And so their wealth, their ownership of their cartel world is every bit as tenuous in that sense, even more so than Trump's ownership of his, the edifice, you know, of Trump Tower or the hotels, etc., right? Okay, so we walk the earth as natural beings. We come here with only ourselves, only our embodiment, right?
See, I called it.
With matter while we're here. But we can't take that matter with us. It remains while we don't. So that gives you a real good understanding of what's going on. So the cartels are going to freak out. They're going to put money into all of this, put their currency into trying to get money, trying to get real value. And that's going to upset things further. The data sets that we had accumulated and it kept accumulating all the way up through to the last ones I did in 2019. Before all of the censorship and the alterations and so on, right? Okay, so, but the data set for the 3 offers kept growing. And it was saying through that entire time that the same process, you know, there's going to be, it didn't change much. It just expanded in the detail that was available within each and every one of the subsections, every one of the subsets in that set. Now, the point of all of this is that number 3 is going to fail. You can't fix the dollar. Number 2 is going to fail. We don't want another petrodollar in debt, and we're going to drill we're going to go out there and drill like bazillions of mad little bees, you know, just getting at this shit, because we need to reinvigorate the economy and stuff, right? The new one is going to fail because they didn't think about what the fuck they're doing, all right? But we're going to have a practical intrusion into this, and that is zero, okay? So the zero solution will be accepted, and that is 0-point technology. And that's why we're at such a critical point. At the end of this process, or in that last process, when they're offering their number 1 option, right, the third option that they come up with, that just fails because it wasn't well thought out, during that period of time that they're trying to sell that, that's when we really start being able to see the visible signs of the disruption of 0-point technology coming out and the discontinuity dilemma overtaking officialdom all around the planet. Now, there's going to be many, many, many different countries to live in during this period of time where it won't be chaotic. So if you were living in Russia, you're not going to suffer anywhere near the problems you will suffering living in the United States. Okay, because Russia has a sound system. They have their energy system under control. Their social order is
for real. I don't understand why my
nailed down. It's
people,
cohesive. They don't allow
when I say I'm broadcasting,
that cause the
don't
Soviet
come
Union
see me
to occur,
on my broadcast. I want to just blow my phone up.
Anti-Elohim worship cult. They very much know that the Jews are behind it all.
That hurts my feelings.
The rabbis and the
and frustrates the fuck out of
me. Enemies and actively using these evil tactics against you. Blah 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 blah. Right. So Russia would be good to live in during this period of time, and all of our old fart group are expats trying to get back into Russia. A number of them are now being allowed back in, so that's cool. You know, now that anyway, I won't go into all of that. Yeah. Over this period of these 3 months, and again, timing, it might be 3, 5, 6, 7 months. I just don't know. The data shows it as 3 months in my interpretation of it, but you know, a lot of things had to be defined, and shit changes over time. Yada yada yada. So anyway, it gets to the point where we aim into 0-point technology, which is a facet of eliminating currency. And this is what desperately scares Trumpsters. And it may even desperately scare Trump, is his world has been always, in his entire existence, 77 years as I understand it, been defined by currency. I had the benefit of an eclectic upbringing and lived in many parts of the world where currency was not an issue, right? It just didn't exist in the 50s and 60s in many parts of the planet. And I had the good fortune or bad fortune at the time, depending on the circumstances, to be in those parts of the planet and observe this stuff and have this as part of my understanding. So I'm not particularly afraid of a world without currency. I have a lot of faith in humans, and I've seen a lot of humans do very amazing in things of ingenuity to get them through difficult circumstances. This is one of my bitches about government, is that government has inherently no faith in humanity, and they think of it as a herd. They want to control it, and because they are coming in from a control aspect, this is one of my reasons for thinking we get into all of these kinds of problems. Now, at the moment, we're facing 0-point technology. Unless you've had your head you know, in a bathroom with no windows and the door shut, you know, you've got no excuse for not knowing that UFOs are appearing every fucking where, and they're very blatant about what they're doing. They're just sitting there hanging so that people will film them. Middle of the day, right over Brooklyn, you know, just today, right? They're just sitting there so that they can get videoed from multiple angles. This is an introduction, people. These people are doing a process that is famous in the woo world. I mean, everybody who's in a martial artist or serious martial artists and serious history explorers know of this technique. What was that movie? They used it in a movie, okay? It was an artifice in a movie intended to move the plot along and introduce a particular set of characters. The movie was like, the 13th Warrior. I think that was the name of it, or the 13th Fighter or something. And it had this guy who was an Arab going with some Vikings, okay? And he's the expositor. He's telling you how weird this Viking society is as he reports, theoretically, you know, you're supposed to be one of his compatriots in terms of the artifice of the conceit of the movie. And he's reporting how weird all these Viking guys are. And in one of the early scenes there, where he's just gotten to know the Vikings he's going to ultimately go and fight with here, they're there at the Viking camp, and that morning he goes out and he looks and he sees there's a new Viking boat there. And there's this young man dressed up in like top dog Viking gear just standing there, just standing in front of the boat. And he just stands there for fucking hours. And then ultimately, as the camp wakes up and stuff, but they were aware of him, ultimately they walk on out and they start talking to the guy. And he comes on in, and then everything goes along. And then this old man, who is the mentor to the 13th Warrior, to this Arab guy, tells him, oh, well, this is because in the land of the north, you know, basically there's fog and there's woo. You're not really sure what the hell you're seeing. So as a guest, you don't want to startle people. You don't want to come on them suddenly because you're going to cause unnecessary upset and stuff. So you accommodate that by having this approach of letting the woo in the world see you rather than try and announce your presence, right? That's what these UFO guys are doing, right? It is a very gentle process, a very gentle way of doing introductions. The Japanese used to do this as well. And so if you were, all right, so there's a couple of famous stories about warriors, even up into the Russo-Japanese War, like the, you know, intrude, they'd come into a situation where they were not part of that fight. And they wanted both sides to know that that was the case. And so in that circumstance, they would present themselves to where they were visible to both sides, reasonably safe in making themselves visible to both sides. And then through their actions of setting their swords down and adopting a particular pose, they would indicate, we're not part of this. We intend no actions to cause either of you parties to flip out and start fighting. And then after a while, they get signs from the parties, okay, we'll let you go through, we got you, we understand. And so it's a way of humans and life accommodating for caution, right? And that's what these UFOs are doing. They're introducing themselves to us. And it's like, you know, the mainstream media is so fucking lame, they're not writing about it the appropriate way. They're saying, oh my God, new mystery. It's just hanging there. What could that mean? You know? Really stupid. Okay, so I got to get moving here and get my bread done. This is basically the idea that we're entering in this period of time where there's going to be extraordinary kinds of chaos, right? At a financial, fiscal, monetary, currency level. A lot of this is going to be, a lot of the emotional response will be prompted by not knowing, all right? So by this period of time, there will be a great deal of anxiety that will be around finances and stuff because nobody is going to know how it is going to shake out. And all of the people that are involved in things like, okay, so the closer you get to the central banks these days, the closer you get to paper currency and debt instruments and derivatives, the more the anxiety will be prevalent because none of those are money. None of those are factual, and they will not remain the minute the Federal Reserve itself goes away. The money has no value in and of itself. Therefore, those people that think that have put their whole lives into all their effort, training their kids, every damn thing into being these financial people will discover that in fact they were simply in the froth layer of the central bank takeover of the planet, and they were speculators, okay? So all of the whole Wall Street edifice, all of the stockbrokers, all of those kind of people are lice, okay? They're lice living in the skin of the central bank, in the hairs there, as the exudates from the skin come out, and that's going to be a huge level of anxiety. So there isn't going to be a whole lot of anxiety in Russia because not very many people are involved in speculative areas there, right? Nor Turkey, nor Iran, nor any of these other areas. So they will be very much more calm about all of this, but there's going to be a great deal of anxiety and upset in all of the Western republics. And this will all go all the way back to Israel and stuff because they're 100% dependent on enslaving the world with central banks. Otherwise, Israel can't exist, right? It shouldn't be there. We shouldn't have Palestine there. So, so that's basically it. I don't think that there's anything much more here. As I say, the title of this is going to be Trump Fucks Up, but I don't think it's him so much, but it could be because, you know, as I said, his whole conceptual in currency, and he can't see he's not demonstrating any sign that that Trump or any of his people see a way out of this crisis, okay? And I have communicated, I've been asked to drop some names for potential people on some of the more sciencey kind of things for the administration, and I have done so.
Right.
I've talked to some of the people that, you know, are way fringe around him, but I don't see any sign that they understand what we're facing, and nor do I see any sign that they understand the nature of this crisis. Okay, the ZPT crisis and its effect on all of Earth and all of the supposed assets. They understand this part. They're freaked out about that. Because ZPT means no central banks, no energy, you don't have to buy oil, any of that kind of shit. We need to get there. Okay, we should have been there 100 years ago, except that the Federal Reserve came in and they put Einstein in place. And, you know, he's a pretty disgusting piece of work. Anyway, I know of the route that gets us here, okay? No one's asked me for how to do it, and there's no point talking about it because there's only a few people that it would make sense to. And they won't like it. They will resist it. But a few of them just might see the sense in it. We will arrive there regardless. The only question now, the only question remaining about ZPT is how much suffering it's going to take for humanity to get into it. So, they're in the process of doing errors. If they don't correct the errors, they will become mistakes. I think they will be so panicked by the backlash to some of their moves that they will wise up along the way.
And my audio sucks unless I lean up and really try to talk.
It's going to be disruptive and tough, and it's going to take 80 years, okay? And there will be many fights along the way. And that's the good route. So anyway, so that's our little video for today. Don't let it upset you too much, right? I mean, all this shit's gonna happen whether you fret about it or not. So, you know, worrying does not aid. Put your energy into, you know, making yourself fit enough to get through this shit. Okay, guys, I guess that's it. Let me swap over. No, I have shut down all the lights and stuff. Anyway, take care. December 3rd was the calculations for the beginning of melee. All of the infighting around all of this shit's going to participate in that melee period of time. But they may well be really, really, really pissed at us by January 15th and taking much more overt actions than simply flying around letting us know that they exist. Anyway.
Closely monitoring developments. As we have any updates.
Okay, that one's not here yet.
Hey, freaky. If people can't.
So Tencent has launched Hunyan.
Oh, just no. Yeah. We can watch a few minutes of this.
All right, welcome to a very special episode of Cosmic Road, where we are joined once again by the triumphant John Stewart. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for having me. I'm going to really start a precedence here of me talking very normally. You know, I have a throat and ear problem I've had since a kid. So I'm trying to get a setup where I'm hearing myself better through my microphone, so I don't feel that I have to talk loud and stuff. So, and I did not know I need this little device called an MVI to really help my microphone go through my laptop. So I'm working on all of this. So I can hear myself, so this is good.
Hey, my mom always told me that I was a loud talker. I'd be at the restaurant and she'd be saying, "Jack, shut up." Yeah, people across the restaurant can hear you speak, you know.
Exactly.
Pipe it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm calling you the triumphant John Stewart because you've just released your awesome documentary about the alien interview, and you go through, the wide range of evidence that you've gathered over the years about this alien interview. And you've had, Richard Dolan, you've had, the Future Forecasting Group or Remote View this stuff. You've had so much corroboration for this. You've had Nico, who saw the same interview from a different angle. So I do you feel vindicated? How has it been since this documentary has finally come out?
Well, it feels good. It's a relief that I don't have to every night do something as far as research. I told a podcaster last night that I was able to. This is pretty comical, but amazing too. I was able to delete or cancel the subscriptions to around $190 a month in subscriptions to be an investigator. Ancestry.com, callrecording.com, all of these other websites, graphic websites to put the whole Victor story together and stuff. So that was a relief. And just I'm no longer looking up things. I'm no longer on the hunt anymore for Victor. And I very frankly, that is a relief after almost 6 years. I'm a little disappointed. But more so confused that the internet that the fact that I did find Victor Standale and the internet was not, I'm not saying throwing me a parade, but that it wasn't more prominent on the internet. Like, wow, one of the biggest, questions in ufology up with, was Roswell true? Is the Wilson Davis memo true? I think in the top 5 has got to be, who is Victor? And so I was a little disappointed to the point of I didn't understand that, why more people weren't spreading the word, so to speak. I like to say it doesn't matter, but it does matter because I don't understand that. But I don't understand much about the UFO community. I haven't for 5 or 6 years. I've made that clear. Well,
John, I just got to say, we've got literal non-human bodies south of the border, the Nazca mummies, and it's crickets for the most part.
Yeah, right.
Don't feel bad.
Yeah, right. That's such a great point. It's, and Jack, you and I are friends, and we've always had conversations like we're having a coffee at Starbucks or something. And I would say, and I'm just recapping it. I'm not making judgments or inflaming anyone. It is what I experienced in the subculture of ripperologists, people that study Jack the Ripper. There was like an 820-page, massive investigation by Bruce Robinson, who was a Hollywood producer, screenwriter. And he basically found that the Maybrick brothers were, partially part of this murder, along with probably Aaron Kosminski. But nobody, it was like, shh, let's put it on the shelf because you're going to ruin a $30 million Jack the Ripper industry, which it is.
You're going to ruin the mystique. Don't do it.
Right. And a psychologist once told me, he's like, look, you're not going to have people come off the hunt this is exciting for people. This is one of the reasons why I'm not a full-fledged libertarian anymore, is that I found that it was more about going to have a beer in camaraderie rather than a political agenda. And I don't cut that down. I understand it psychologically. It's just not something that I think is conducive for the UFO community. And lastly, I will finish with, we are trying to get the media on board with us. And I think with the collapse of MSNBC and Trump being elected, whether you like him or not, I think there's going to be more of an open mind, out of the box thinking with the media. And I want people to listen to me, that when media people who are able to spread our word and message on print media and electronic media come into the UFO group, we don't want them to see a dumpster fire, right? We probably want them to see if we can, an intellectual conversation. People, if you don't agree, if you don't believe it, maybe instead of saying, oh, you're a grifter or you're an SOB, we say, well, that's interesting. I'll take that into under consideration or whatnot. So that's just my message to the UFO community. Let's try and, tone down the rhetoric, because eventually you're going to get some serious media people that will want to do stories, and they're not going to do stories on a dumpster fire. That's just my
I don't know,
opinion.
John. A dumpster fire is way more intelligent, way more entertaining than an intelligent
That's
conversation.
true.
I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds
It-
so
it
boring.
might-
Actually, having a rational
Right.
discourse. But
Right. It might.
Speaking
Yeah.
to that, speaking of mainstream people getting on this, you've had Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal that have been privy to what you're doing. And do you think that they will ever cover this in a mainstream publication?
Well, I told Ralph who Victor was, and he's like, "Thank you." I'm going to be. I've never said this before publicly, and I will only say this to you. It's not a big deal. But it is inside information. Something happened with Leslie and Ralph and me. I don't know what. I pissed Ralph off because I put him as a quote in an article that the only article I was ever allowed to publish in the mainstream media on thinker.com, which has an editor, and you have to go through that process. And I used Ralph as a quote because he did say something to me, and he was pissed at me, but I removed it right away. That is the only thing Ralph could be ever angry with. I've been nothing but kind to him and briefed him up on the update. And Leslie and I are now, I'll talk about it. A person emailed me and he said, well, I saw Leslie at a conference or some lecture. And she said, well, John's really not going about the Victor interview investigation like a journalist. And I wrote her a terse email. She replied to it. I don't even want to reply to it. I don't want to get myself upset. But I went to Ralph and Leslie before I started the Hollywood, the Jon Stewart train of media and hyperbole and, in videos. And I investigated this like a journalist, vetting my sources, 2 or 3 layers. And then I took it to Ralph and Leslie. Like I've told everybody, if Ralph and Leslie would have done this story in August of 2022, you never would have saw me. I never would have done the Jon Stewart tour and try to get the word out. But in 137 media outlets, both print and electronically, have declined to do this story. So I wrote Leslie an email, a terse one, like, what are you talking about? I came to you like a journalist before the Hollywood-esque of my investigation. I went to Congress. I went to the New York Times, like a journalist, like an investigator. You said we can't do it until somebody from the military comes forward. David Grush comes forward months later, and we still can't do it. I don't say anything. And you go behind my back and tell somebody I'm not doing this journalistically. Come on. That is so unfair. So I am really very, very upset with Leslie. I don't care what she says in the email. I deleted it. I don't want to read her reply because I know the guy was truthful. There is no excuse for that. She should have said, John tried. We tried for John. Proud that he vetted all these sources and whatnot. And the media is just not ready for an actual alien. And I understand that he had to go the Hollywood route. No, and if I'm trying to talk calm. If I'm viewed it as negative in the eyes of Leslie Keene for making $8 per person on a pay-per-view. Well, what is that when you write a book and get a $50,000 advance from Simon and Schuster? Is that not grifting, or is that not making money on? I mean, that I can't, and knowing, and Leslie knew that I was spent $25,000 and upward on this investigation. So there's been a lot of disappointment, but I will end with a positive note. I have gotten so many emails, Jack, from just truly kind, decent people in the UFO community who watched the documentary, our conversation, so to speak, that were just truly great. And a lot of people have been saying the same theme. A couple of my family members said the same theme that I kind of went around the actual alien and went around like, how could the video production company do this, do that, know this, know that, spend this kind of money? And I kind of like did a shooting gallery around the alien, and people, more than 3 people, strangers, said, I like the way you went about it, like proving that no matter what it is, I still don't know what the video is, but I am quite confident 100% that the government filmed that, whether it was a magic psyop program, disinformation, or really an extraterrestrial. So I'm glad people got that, what I was doing, because you're never going to prove the alien, unless you have the puppet, animatronic puppet, or the being in formaldehyde. I'm never going to prove it. So why roll the rock up the hill and let it roll down again? I went around it the securitist way, and a lot of people got that and appreciated that. So I'm happy with that.
Well, it's interesting because you talk about, the possibility of it still being a puppet or something. But if it was a puppet and Nico was seeing something very similar to that alien interview video, but from a different angle and much longer video, like almost an hour-long video, why go to the trouble of making that when only like 5 people are going to see that video? And
why go to the trouble?
Yeah. Hey, I have to act like a journalist and an investigator. And this is why I am so upset with Leslie Keene, that all of my efforts, that if you want me to be off the record, okay, I'm going to talk off the record. That video is so real that it should be, it's the most important historical document in human history at this point, until we see a VHS tape of the crucifixion of Christ. Period. End of story. However, as an investigator, as a journalist, as a scientist, because I do not have that puppet or that bean in my grips or grasp, or I can go look at it, I have to, as hard as it is have a caveat. Like, I can't say for sure. And that's frustrating, but I have to act like that. And that's why I'm so upset with Leslie Keene right now. But yes, I mean, it's off the record. It's comical to this point how much information we have, knowing that it is real. But I can't say that on record. If it's the reverse speech of Victor, if it's Nico, if it's the remote viewers, it's the 5 military whistleblowers. We have another, what would you call him? We have another special forces person that came to a Hollywood producer last week. Please tell John I'm in special forces, blah, blah, blah. It's real. I mean, it's just on and on. And remember, I put out the video because we gave up, because we could find no one with any specific verifiable evidence that would pass in a court of law of why that was fake, why that was a hoax. And that's why we came out in last week, because we just had nothing else. It was nobody else would help us prove that it was a hoax.
Well, you end the movie with a very passionate letter to Chuck Schumer, saying we have ended our investigation, but we're passing the baton to you, and it's time for Congress to take up the pursuit of getting to the truth of this. Have you heard back from anybody?
No, and I don't expect we have. I also sent. Did you see my entire essay on Aquarius. I posted on the internet about a month ago. I sent that to Nat. It was right after the second congressional hearing. And folks, listen to how frustrating this could be. I called aides for Nancy Mace and Anna Paulina Luna, whatever.
Yeah, Anna Paulina Luna. Yeah.
Anna Paulina Luna. I talked to an aide in both of their offices. My name is John Stewart. I came by your office months ago with the gray envelope. I would like to send you my entire investigation on Project Aquarius. The aide is like, okay, give me your email. Here's the email you're going to send it to. I'm going to notify him to look out for your email. Are you sending it in a few minutes? Okay, great. We're going to look out for your email. Real professional essay or investigation about Project Aquarius with code names, people's names, everything, the whole works. Having the aide look out for the email, both representatives, nothing. So I've given up. I'm trying.
That's frustrating.
I've given up. I give up. I give up.
Hey,
Do what you want.
Remind us what Project Aquarius is?
Excuse me, can you ask me that again?
Can you remind us what Project Aquarius is?
Yes, Project Aquarius was started, we think, sometime in the 50s, maybe 60s. I can't honestly find the actual date. It is simply the government's umbrella project for all contact with extraterrestrials, off-planet beings, and Homo sapiens sapien. And out of that umbrella came a lot of other programs and projects. But that was the umbrella, and that, we believe, was the first ever project, we believe, was Saucer. That was set up by Truman, then Glean, then Aquarius, we believe. Go there, investigate yourself. And Project was simply the basic umbrella program for all things contact of extraterrestrials and Homo sapiens sapiens, including biological material, metallurgy, the craft, the propulsion, the avionics, the flight systems, the life support. Where are these beings from? What can we learn from them in a technological way? Why are they here? Are they a harm to our Earth? What can we use from them militarily, which we have in many instances, and on and on and on. And every time there was a major breakthrough or a major, I'm going to call it investigation or a branch, an offshoot program that would get another name, like
everybody checking in tonight. We have over 200 people watching. So as I say, I'm going to be fielding questions because this did not go the way I anticipated. I really didn't think that that my trip to RAF Lakenheath would result in me seeing much of anything. And I saw a lot more than I expected. And also, I experienced a lot that I didn't think I would experience in terms of interactions with locals and other people who have also seen a lot and also spent a lot more time watching the base than I did. Hello, San Jose, and then we got Cardiff, Gothenburg, Sweden. Russia deserves a bigger asteroid. Hello, South New Jersey. Hello to Hungary. Really, really appreciate it. Yeah, the video from 2015. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I have actually received that, and I'll go ahead and look at it again. I'll tell you, it's I no excuse here, but I get overwhelmed with a lot of messages and emails, and I apologize for all of that. Robert, thank you so much for the $10. We got 2 super chats already, heading towards our goal of 10. And as always, if we can hit that goal of 10 super chats tonight, then we will award 5 Discord memberships. That includes access to my Patreon library, which has 12 videos in it now, 12 exclusive videos that I've created for Patreon folks, and that number is going to increase as time goes on, but you're going to get that, access to the Discord server, etc. What did I hear when filming my last video? Generally, I heard nothing. Unless I was filming something that I knew for sure was a plane. For example, there's some footage in my video of something that is quite obviously a plane. You can see a green and the light and red, rather, green and red lights flashing periodically. And that is unquestionably a plane. And that was circling the field continuously, almost like on a patrol pattern. Alien Intelligence Agency, thank you so much for the super chat. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks very much. As I say, everybody's support for this, it makes it to where I'll be able to do another one of these in the near future, because, you know, I want to follow up on these stories. I want to see exactly what's happening. But if I didn't see something that I knew I could identify, then I didn't hear anything ever. There's no noise at all. Now, sometimes, you know, there would be noise coming from the base that would mask any sort of noise. They would fire up jet engines on the base periodically, sometimes for aircraft that were about to take off. Sometimes they didn't take off. I think in some cases they're probably testing engines, doing maintenance work on them, that sort of thing. And that was on Friday night. And then on Saturday night, there was no noise at all. The entire base was completely blacked out. However, according to a mainstream British media, and once again, I'm not going to say who they work for because I don't want them to be identified by their employers, but a mainstream UK media representative said that a Chinook helicopter landed with a full squad of troops on board that apparently had been dispatched from an area that trains SAS troops. And that was at the time that the entire base was blacked out. So we had the best of the British Special Forces being dispatched to it's what is essentially a U.S. base on a Saturday night when everything was blacked out. Very strange indeed. Scotty, thank you so much for the $5. I really do appreciate it. Reddit was live with rumors of major activity by December 3rd. Pickle, thank you so much for the $5. And thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Yes, I do my best to be fact-based. I do my best to really not jump at stories until there's a little bit more factual information to back up what's being said. Or if I do show footage that's just footage, then I'll say so. You know, that it could be a variety of things. It could be CGI, could be a lot of things, some of this footage. Digital Voodoo, thank you so much for the tenor. And as you guys know, Digital Voodoo creates most of the music that I use on my channel now. Not only that, he also creates a lot of the visuals that I use on my channel. Very talented guy. He has a YouTube channel. We just got it past 100 subscribers today. I want to get it to 1,000, guys. 1,000 subscribers, which allows monetization, because he deserves to start making some money on what he does. Okay. So all that being the case, yeah, weird stuff indeed going on. So once again, I may have missed some questions in the chat already, and I apologize for that. And by the way, I guess I'm just telling my producer this for the first time as well. I'm also going to have a follow-up Q&A discussion with just my Discord people, and that just to kind of limit the field of questions a little bit more. So if Discord Patreon folks don't get a chance to have their questions answered tonight, I'm going to do a separate private Q&A for those folks. So if you're amongst that group and your question does get answered tonight, don't worry, I got your back. Okay. So all that having been said, thank you so much, Retired Pa. Thanks so much. Really appreciate your support. Calls out BS when he sees it. Well, once again, thanks very much. I do my best. Wow, Retired Pa, that's your first super chat ever on a live stream. I'm honored. Thank you so much. Boy, Chef with another super chat. Wow, another $5. Boy, you guys are fantastic. You're just coming through tonight. Why are these things not visiting Russia and China, but only the UK and USA? Actually, they are visiting Russia and China. Absolutely, they are. We've seen lots of footage from Russia. In some cases, very similar things to the things we have seen in the United Kingdom and the United States. It's very similar phenomena. Once again, if you want to go to Genined, on YouTube, you will see, and once again, I can't attest to the validity of all that footage, but I can tell you that there's a lot of Russian footage on there. Now, of course, Chinese footage is a little bit more difficult because YouTube isn't even available in China. So you have to go to the Chinese social media, to Weibo, to see the vast majority of Chinese footage that's out there. Common Sense, thank you so much for $5. Enjoyed the Ensman Echo Lance concept. Any more exploration? Yeah, I'd be very interested indeed in doing more stuff. The Ensman archive folks actually are big supporters of the channel now after I did that, because apparently the thing I did on the Echo Lance led to the book on the subject that they had just published at the time ending up on the bestseller list for a while. So they're very happy with my channel. So as a result, I've got a great relationship with the folks over at the Ensman Archive. Unfortunately, of course, Dr. Ensman's been dead for quite some time. But yeah, I mean, that is the answer. They are visiting Russia, and they're probably visiting China too, but we don't get to see as much of that because Chinese access to social media is far, far more restricted than it is here in the rest of the world. But if you have a Weibo account, which I would discourage, because if you get a Weibo account, then you're essentially opening up your information to Chinese surveillance. But if you were to get a Weibo account, you'd probably see a lot more. Okay, I am sick. Yeah. For those of thanks for your concern. Really appreciate it. Anybody who's noticed that from my voice and things. I've been sick for a few days, actually. I was sick the entire time that I was in Suffolk. And then out there in that cold, I'll tell you, it was a struggle. Boy, that's strange timing. Excuse me. So yeah, it was kind of grim, but in any event, it was so exciting. I didn't really notice that I was sick a lot of the time. The recent Arizona sightings, I do have a take on that. There is one that has all of these lights, you know, on a plane, on a single sort of horizontal, that looks like part of a huge craft of some kind or something like that. And then that has been identified as a bunch of car lights lined up on a butte or on a mesa. And again, that is a big thing about Arizona that can be very misleading, is the fact that there are so many mesas, buttes, mountains, etc., that don't show up very well in the darkness. And so it's easy to put lights on top of those things and then to misidentify them as things that are flying. However, if you watch that footage longer, watch to the end of that footage, you will see those lights spread out more into a triangular shape that appears to have dimensions, both in terms of the vertical and the horizontal, which would be impossible for cars lined up on a butte or on a mesa. So I don't know about that explanation, to be honest, even though there may indeed be a mesa that corresponds to the altitude that those lights were filmed at. That could mean a variety of things. It could mean that those lights suddenly, you know, appeared up over the mesa, just poked up over it, and then changed their formation as they passed over the mesa. You know, a mesa can create interesting optical effects on things both in the air and on the ground. So it's very easy to dismiss these things if you know about the terrain effects or just the terrain of the area. But at the same time, given how those lights changed and morphed over the course of the footage, I'm not entirely certain about that. Like I say, at the beginning, what's happening in Antarctica? I'm afraid I don't know. I'm sorry. There's so many things that I'm unaware of. So let's go ahead and yeah, the Antarctic stuff. I'm afraid I don't know enough about that. So in any event, and somebody says they debunked the car light idea using the mountain ridge line. Yeah, it's possible. Once again, you know, just because a butte or a mesa happens to be there in the dark doesn't mean that it's something on the ground. You know, terrain features would affect something in the air too. If whatever those lights were, if there was something flying and they were behind the mesa, they would be similarly affected. So it's, as I say, and oftentimes even UAP/UFO enthusiasts will be quick to dismiss things because they look like, something that cropped up before. Bear with me for a moment, guys. I apologize. This cold is really taking a toll on me. Bear with me just a moment. I apologize. Okay, so a lot of times, a lot of even UAP enthusiasts, will see something and they say, this kind of looks like something that was debunked, years ago, and jump to conclusions because, again, they're afraid to be criticized. They're afraid to look foolish. They're afraid to look like crazy people. And so, as a result, they will sometimes jump to conclusions that something's mundane.
Oh, wait. I am not afraid to look
Sometimes
like a
with very
crazy
little
person.
evidence to support their assertion. And we need to be just as exacting and just as detail oriented on a mundane explanation as we are on a fantastic explanation, an extraterrestrial explanation, or whatever you want to attribute UFOs to be. If you assign a mundane cause to a UFO sighting, that means you really should be able to back it up with facts. If you can't, then we should not be so quick to embrace the mundane explanation just because it makes us feel better or just because we think it makes us look less foolish. And again, I even saw this with people who had witnessed things at RAF Lakenheath, people who did not want to be identified, period. Even now, they don't want to be identified as somebody who believes in crazy stuff. And that was very disappointing to me. But at the same time, I totally understood because people they get subjected to a lot of criticism otherwise. Let's see. Bear with me here. Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's kind of the way I've always... My dad taught me that that's the way my work ethic should be. So, and I've kind of always been that way. All right, let's see. Pentagon said there have been no incursions over military installations since 11/26. Is this true? No, definitely not. It's not true. Even if it's drones being flown by amateurs or something like that, even then it's not true. The drone that I spotted on Saturday night at RAF Lakenheath looked very much like a commonly available commercial drone. And by the way, in sharp contrast to a lot of the other things that I saw. And it was flying in a vicinity of the base that you should not be flying drones in at all. Definitely an incursion. And so I became interested. I wanted to try to find those drone operators, and I knew that there was a road back there behind the tree line to where I could drive in and at least get close to the base and close to where I thought
what's the deal with
drone
my
operators might be. I took my car out, I made a couple of sweeps up and down that road, and then I saw the drone again and turned my car down the road to where I thought I could get closer. The moment my headlights lit up that area to where the drone was, the drone vanished completely. The lights disappeared, everything. If it was a military drone, why the hell would they care if I was swinging my headlights in that direction? Why would they not instead have chased me off if they were supposed to be there? So yeah, there's definitely a drone there. I got it on film. It's on my video. like I say, I can't imagine that was any sort of military operation. I think it was probably kids or something like that with the drone. Aria Fairford, hello, number free. Thank you very much for the £2. Very quiet. Yeah, there's been a lot of that. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, of course I'm going to chase the drone operators. It wasn't just me, by the way. The young man who represented the British news agency, who once again I'm not going to identify, he also was very interested in trying to find drone operators, and he was the one who actually turned me on to the road networks and the geography of the area as to how we could get into some of the darker areas in close proximity to the base to maybe find drone operators. And then I was following up on his leads to try to chase them down. There was another occasion where a police officer went back in there, lights on, that sort of thing. We thought maybe he was looking for drone operators. So we actually tailed him. The two of us. It's always safer for journalists when we travel in groups. People are less likely, or the officials, military, that sort of thing, are less likely to take drastic action against groups of journalists as opposed to just one on your own. So it was very interesting.
Well, I hear that just fine.
Other than, and yeah, the drone propellers, it was very far away.
I really don't understand the issue.
Drone. So that's why I couldn't hear it. It was quite a ways off.
Right there,
but in terms of its appearance and the way it flew around, it bore a tremendous amount of resemblance to groups of drones that I saw being operated by Rocket Factory Augsburg at night in Saxavord when they were going to test the engines on their rocket there. They had several drones in the vicinity that were going to film it as they had some of the dramatic swoop down kind of maneuvers. They were getting ready to fire the engines. They're trying to get something really spectacular. It was a scrub that night. They didn't actually fire their engines, but I did see the drones, and only when the drones are fairly close are you going to hear their engines. Otherwise, you don't hear them at all. But still, the lights and their movement, all of that is very distinctive. And I'm certain that what I saw on Saturday night was a drone. But that is what I find to be so interesting, is the fact that on Friday night there was a lot more activity. And I saw quite a number of things that most definitely were not drones, at least not ordinary drones. And again, flying without noise. Now, anytime I saw jets or anything in the region, by the way, 2 jets made a landing at the airfield on Thursday night, or Friday night rather. And also the patrol plane that was circling the base. It had twin turboprops and was very apparent. You could definitely hear it.
All right, let's see.
But everything else
What's this look like?
was moving without noise. And that was very interesting indeed.
That kind of looked like the same camera.
Stuff really close to the horizon.
Very close.
Moving without noise. We hit our goal, Shelby Z. Okay, everybody stay tuned because we're giving away 5 free memberships here. So don't forget about that. The producer is going to put in his instructions. Here we go. 5, 4. Everybody get ready. You're going to click on this the moment you see it. There you go. Click on that Discord link. And the first 5 who click on it get a membership.
Get a membership.
Thank you so much. This is awesome. Really appreciate it. Why does someone locally hotspot? Just thank you so much. Buy a thermal scope and tripod. I actually think I saw some people with that out there, but unfortunately I haven't seen their footage yet. But there were people out there with what looked to be fairly sophisticated camera equipment and tripods. So again, but then I haven't seen their footage, sadly, and they don't seem to have released it online either, and I don't know why. Very, very strange indeed. I once witnessed small orange glowing orbs following each other around, and they're playing. Yeah, I had some of that too. Some of the drones moving closer to the horizon, I saw lights as if they were pursuing each other, reacting to each other, that sort of thing. it was fascinating. But then again, the things that I saw that were really weird, because keep in mind, there were several different types of phenomena that I observed, were the things that resembled satellites in low Earth orbit passing over, but that didn't behave like satellites. And I didn't see it not only for myself, I saw a couple of these for myself, but in addition to that, an individual local who had been filming them for days, he had a lot of footage, which unfortunately I haven't gotten yet, that showed them moving through the stars. Again, they move against that starry background in a way that satellites do, and I enjoy watching satellites. I've enjoyed watching satellites for decades, and yet then they change their trajectory. Satellites can't do that. They absolutely cannot do that. And this happened several times, including a very bright object that passed over the sky to the west, northwest approximately, and tracked across the sky. Oh boy, that's a bright satellite. Maybe it's the International Space Station or something like that. It wasn't, by the way, because I checked on the ISS's course for that particular night. It didn't correspond. Very bright, but it didn't matter because it tracked for a while and stopped and hovered. Blew my mind. Just absolutely blew my mind, and then disappeared. And that was very, very strange. I thought it was a satellite in 2014, passed halfway, turned 90 degrees, went about 1 moon width, and stopped and stayed in the same spot for at least an hour. Yeah, it was like that. I mean, it didn't hover for that long because it vanished fairly quickly, but still very similar to what you described there. So, I mean, weird stuff. We're talking things that were over the base, things that, and there are also many, many accounts of how aircraft were pursuing these UAPs.
All right.
What you're watching right now, by the way, that's just the base itself. I've got some of the raw footage. As you can see, certain times of night, the base was lit up like a Christmas tree. But other time, yeah, we have a huge crowd watching, by the way. Hey, Supax, brother, I really appreciate you checking in for tonight. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks very, very much.
All right. That's a little better. I can live with that.
So, let's see. What else?
Mics.
I've seen a massive UFO myself, says number for you, plus one of those weird clouds scudding against the wind. Yeah. Interesting stuff indeed. Scion propulsion equals electromagnetic shield generator. Yep. The idea that they're demons, we live in a very strange universe. What we call demons, somebody else might call something completely different. If we're talking, and it also depends on your definition of demons. I can see that you appear to have what are Chinese characters, maybe. I'm sorry, I'm not that in your ID there. What the Japanese and Chinese define as being demons entirely different than what we define as being demons here in the West. You can see there in that grainy footage, really weird look. Again, just a lot of
Google increased floor lamp brightness to 60%.
Objects. Some of them kind of flashing in the way that you would expect for aircraft or drones that are certified by the CAA using the appropriate the appropriate lighting, that sort of thing, but others weren't. And again, I didn't see any of this on Saturday night. None of these lights that you're watching right now in that grainy kind of footage were there on Saturday night at all. So if they were distant commercial air traffic of some kind flashing at night, then why weren't they there on the following night? Because whatever those things were, they were associated with, they were definitely associated with base activity. And again, the flashing varied and changed depending on the the time of the flight. It wasn't like a constant flash that you would expect from an aircraft, but rather something that would stop and then brighten, stop, brighten, flash. It didn't have the same appearance that some of the aircraft I saw that very night did. I mean, I saw quite a number of aircraft whose lights were, were flashing in a manner that you would expect for something certified by the FAA or the CAA, and then some not. Very, very interesting stuff. Indeed, Russia have night and thermal vision satellites. Yeah, it's wow, mighty Don, and thank you so much. 50 quid, my God, blow my mind. Thank you so much for your incredible generosity. Really, really appreciate it, folks. Thanks very much. Having a great night for that. And once again, this support is what allows me to do these sorts of things. So looking forward to chasing my next UFO event. Once it gets announced anyway. If things are happening online, it's happening in the south of England somewhere, or even if it's happening somewhere else in Europe, I may go to chase that down because this is interesting stuff and not what I expected at all. Metallic clouds that can change direction. No, nothing like that. As a matter of fact, I've never really seen anything in the daylight, except for one strange thing I saw close to an airport that looked like a giant flying wing of some kind, but hovering. Again, what would expect? That was what one would expect for an aircraft coming into land, but I've seen that many, many times, and this aircraft never did land. Yeah, there we go. What's on the screen now is that, and again, so shaky, so horribly shaky. I apologize, guys, but that was an aircraft that I saw that night with the green and red lights, and then that later on, that footage transitioned over to that what looked like a satellite. That tracked across the sky, as I said, and like a normal satellite, but then stopped, hovered. Very odd. And I saw many satellites that night, by the way, many on Friday night. It's something that one can expect to see because, I mean, it's on an early evening hours. The angle of the sunlight after the sun has set, that sunlight is still shining up into the heavens above you, and so it's catching those solar panels on satellites perfectly. So you're going to see lots and lots of satellites, especially today.
If I had $1 million
and other constellations, a lot more satellites than we've ever seen before.
Well,
so I saw
presumably-
quite a number of satellites. Sometimes 2 or 3 in the same area. But then again, I see a couple of others that were not satellites at all. I bet it didn't blink for the whole time filming that. Yeah, I would definitely agree. So I guess in conclusion, about time to wrap up. And wow, Jamie, thank you so much for the $10. Let me say thank you for the incredible generosity tonight. You guys have been incredible. You blew that target away on the super chats. This makes a huge difference, guys. I'm seriously, more than you know. This kind of support makes it possible for me to do the things that I do. Otherwise, I would just be a YouTuber staying in the same room all the time and doing my best to report on these things as they are being reported by somebody else. But instead, because of you guys, and only because of you guys, either here with Super Chats or on Patreon or PayPal or whatever, because of you guys, that's why I'm able to do these things. And I will definitely be doing it again and soon. So, folks, thank you very much for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. Once again, Discord, folks, if you didn't get your questions answered tonight, I'm going to be doing a follow-up for the Discord and Patreon, folks. So just keep your eyes on the Discord and Patreon information, and I'll be announcing that very soon. Thank you so much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, stay angry about space.
All right, well, moving on. Oh, that's over there. Balls. I gotta go anyways. But it's not like I'm gonna watch this shit. I was distracted as fuck the whole time. So, see y'all later. Sayonara and stuff.